Hey, what's up, DevTips? It's your boy, Travis. It's been like, maybe like 5 years since I've had access to this channel and, been able to post anything, but here I am again. And I've brought my very my BF to the F major. This is Max Supera. Say hello, Max.
That's sweet. Hello. It's good to be here.
Yeah, buddy. So good to
join.
Yeah.
Be the hype. The hype man.
Dude, you're total part of this. You're my new co-host for this show, and we're not going to explain a lot about what's going to happen in the future because we kind of don't know. We're just writing it. All we know are a few facts. Number one, we have access to the channel again. Number two, we want to post some stuff. Number three, this is our first time we're doing it, so let's get into it. And for the first, episode of the new DevTips, I came across this video that I sent to you just yesterday. And so I'll share this doc here. And this is a video from Jack Conte's keynote at South by Southwest that was just recent. And it really struck me. First of all, Jack is just like such a compelling speaker, like everything he says, I'm just like, yeah. I'm a big fanboy from way back. I remember when I was like watching the music video Pedals. So he made this music video in his garage. Well, he has had a few bands, but this one is on his self-titled EP called Conte, and it's like an EDM. He does a lot of different genres, but he did I
didn't know that about him.
Yeah. He did a 4-song EP called Conte, and it's awesome. It's just his last name. But there's this song on it called Pedals, and I remember when my kids were little, like, couldn't be like 3 and 5, and we would just like jump around and dance into the living room with this song. And like the music video, he like built this kind of crazy stage in his garage. He tells like the whole story of it.
Have you seen him live? Have you ever met him by any chance?
Yeah. I've met him a few times. We've spoken. We were standing in line one time at VidCon, and we had a good conversation. And then also I did see him live with his other band Pomplamoose, which he is in with his wife. And it was kind of funny because I had my phone and I was like recording it and I was like, yeah. And then he grabbed my phone out of the audience during that show, and he was like, took it up on stage and was just fucking around with it. And then afterwards he was like, whose phone is this? Come see me on the side. And like I went and talked to him for a little bit there. And then
that's hilarious.
Yeah, and then
He sounds like a good guy.
It's a lot of fun. He's got a great energy. Yeah. But yeah, so this talk that he did at South by is kind of like really, I thought it was relevant to us because we're launching the channel again, and it's all about the creator internet. And so I gotta rub my nose a little bit. Do you ever get that when you talk? It's like the itchiest nose. I feel like I have to pick my nose all the time. Okay. So I'm gonna play a little clip, and then we'll kind of discuss. In this clip, Jack's kind of setting up his thesis where he's talking about the history of the web. And I think this is a really good overview.
By sheer luck, I happened to finish school right when this budding technology called the internet was going through a massive shift. It was just starting to move from what people called Web 1 to Web 2.0. I'm sure everybody knows about this in this room. Y'all are here at South by Southwest, so you probably know this. But Web 1 was essentially a read-only version of the internet. In retrospect, people call this 90s version of the web the static web. It was like AOL, where you could browse web pages and read the news, but there was no easy way for people to upload and share. And then in the early 2000s, a slew of new companies like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter came onto the scene, and YouTube's motto was broadcast yourself. The whole idea of Web 2 was that for the first time as a creative person, you could easily participate on the internet. You could post and tweet and upload instead of just being a passenger. And I thought that was fucking awesome. Honestly, I still think it's fucking awesome. It's so easy to forget how magical this is, how special this is. But this moment in history marked a shift for humanity, and for artists and creators especially, because for the first time on the internet, you could do more than just consume. You could create. You could reach other people.
So the idea of Web 2 being the idea of participation and not just a read-only kind of setting. And I really like this clip because I sent it to my daughter because like there's so much context that we don't have as that gets lost as we progress through the years. Like, do you recall Web 1 where it's like it was just AOL and you could have chat rooms, but that was like the only interactive kind of thing?
Yeah, that was something I was thinking about
Yeah.
there were, interactive elements. There were chat rooms, AIM, that was a big deal.
AIM was huge. Yeah, that was connective.
Yeah.
But it was small
There just
potatoes. Like it
wasn't-
wasn't like one to many. It wasn't like broadcasting. It was connecting.
Yeah, but was it a shift in like technology that allowed this to happen, or was it a shift in thinking of like, oh, we can do this with this technology?
I think both. The technology develops hand in hand with the ideas of what are possible. So for example, like the early days of YouTube, you could only upload, like 2 minutes or less than something, like there was like a really, really stringent limit. Whereas now you could just live stream forever. And that was a technological limitation, right?
But would you say that now that we can live stream, that's not Web 3.0, right? They call the whole blockchain space Web 3.
No.
So like I would say that shift in tech is actually greater than the shift in tech between Web 1 and Web 2. I think that the big shift between those things were thinking paradigms, design thinking, right? Like what that brain's coming along saying, this is what we're doing with this tech.
I agree with you, yeah. I agree with you because if we think about this shift from Web 2, which is like broadcast yourself, more, subscriber-led. This next clip that I want to share with you, Jack, kind of goes into like the idea of subscribers and how important that was, like the idea of the follow button. And how that set up this opportunity for creators on the internet to share out. And I think that you're right. It did have a lot to do with like the thinking of the tech companies at the time. I would argue like aided by the technology advancements. But the same thing you could say is going on between the gap of Web 2 and Web 3, where like the subscribe model turns into this kind of like algorithmic feed model, the follow model. So here, let me just play this clip, and he kind of talks about the magic of finding the subscribe button and how that would work for him.
I was screaming my fucking guts out and playing accordion and doing collabs with friends, and it started working. People started watching my videos and listening to my music. I was reaching people. My videos started getting thousands of views. It wasn't millions of people at first, but it was so much better than playing empty bars. So I kept doing it. And by 2009, I had made 43 YouTube videos of my songs, and I was feeling amazing because for the first time in my life, I was actually reaching people with my work. Okay, but the real beauty of this new website called YouTube, the most amazing thing about it was that it had a subscribe button. I only realized how truly special this idea was in retrospect. But in my opinion, this concept turned out to be one of the most important things about this new era of the internet, what people called Web 2.0. The subscribe button was foundational. It changed YouTube from being a tool to reach people to being a way to reach them and then build a following around my work. The subscribe button allowed people who liked my stuff to sign up to see more of it in the future. And as a creator, it gave me a channel of distribution to ensure that my future work was sent to those people. So it turned out that Web 2 solved more than just reach, more than just discovery. It represented the birth of the follower. In my opinion, the follow is not some handy feature of a social network. The follow is foundational architecture for human creativity and organization.
Right. So Jack says that the subscribe button is a foundational tool in like the Web 2.0 because you're no longer just reaching, like broadcasting and sending out, but that subscribe, as what you're saying, is like a thought innovation, not necessarily a technological breakthrough.
Yeah.
And
well, I would say, yeah, it is more of an innovation than an invention, because prior to the subscribe button on YouTube, Facebook had follow, MySpace had follows, MySpace had artists pages. Twitter, you could follow friends. The like button was also a big shift in the way people interacted with other people's things, right? The like button, I think, probably had a bigger impact than subscribe and follow. But yeah, he's kind of bundling up subscribe with the follow.
He is, yeah, just that modality.
And attributing YouTube with the subscribe button. But I think that for artists on YouTube was a pivotal moment.
Right.
That type of engagement, I agree, is a huge shift in people's ability to, and artists, especially creators' ability to engage with potential fans.
Yeah. I have a few other clips about how kind of like that follow button changed Jack's life, like because he's in a few bands, and like just being able to reach out and have a following, touch his community, have that kind of like consistent feedback mechanism of like if I put something out there, the followers will see it, Yeah. And then he kind of goes a little bit of a pivot into the history again, and talks about the advent of kind of like algorithmic feeds as opposed to like chronological feeds. Yeah. So we'll hear him talk about that a little bit here.
The whole internet was again starting to shift. And if you think of the 90s as Web 1 and the 2000s as Web 2, right around the 2010s, there was a new change happening. Facebook started experimenting with a new thing called ranking. And I realize most everybody here knows about this, but what ranking did was essentially it took the feed, which you can think of as a list of posts from creators that I follow, and it analyzed each and every post for how engaging it was. And if it wasn't engaging enough, Facebook would then take that post and push it down in the feed. In other words, they started ranking or ordering posts according to what was best for their business. This was actually great for Facebook. It was the right business decision for them and their company and their revenue model. But what it meant for creators was that for the first time since Web 2.0, my followers might not necessarily see my posts. And this idea of a subscription started to break down. If the person doesn't receive the things, it's not really a direct, true connection between a creator and their fans. It's not really a subscription. The channel of distribution is broken. And it creates another problem, too, around creative freedom, because now suddenly, my post has to be better than the other posts, according to a set of criteria that I don't know or have control of or even agree with. So instead of thinking, what do I want to make? What lights me up? What is the output that I want to create as an artist? What will my fans love? Instead of thinking those questions, now in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what will the ranking algorithm favor?
Yeah, he introduces this idea, this kind of like advent in the 2010s. Like, and it's interesting that these kind of go by decades, right? We got the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, when we have algorithmic feeds. Facebook kind of pioneered this with their news feed at the time. Yeah.
It was just the feed, yeah.
The feed. Yeah, I remember like people complaining about it back then. The artists that I knew, the creators that I knew, they were super bummed. Like nobody's like seeing anything anymore. But
yeah, I remember they made that shift, and it was kind of weird. That it was, it had definitely had some growing pains.
Yeah. Well, what was it like for you at the time? Because you were creating at that time.
Yes.
2010s.
Back then, I was more, I think, on SoundCloud as far as music is concerned.
Yeah.
Facebook, I vaguely do remember some of the issues, like where it was almost useless for weeks at the very beginning, because it was like not showing you anything you wanted. But I think that was just them tweaking the update. Just some growing pains from a new feature. Because it clearly worked to some degree, at least like what Jack was saying, for their business, because it took over the paradigm of how people consume content on these platforms.
Yeah. He has a few slides later that kind of says like everybody had to jump in because they were losing, right? They were losing, attention to Facebook. And so YouTube had they used their machine learning to kind of get a better home feed. Twitter as well, Instagram. This all happened.
Yeah. Ultimately, it is just kind of automatic categorization. That's all that's happening, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they clicked on a thing. They looked at this thing longer. We're going to make an educated guess that they liked it.
Right.
Or actually, it doesn't even matter if they liked it. They could have hate watched it, but it kept their attention, right?
Right.
And that ends up becoming the metric, which is what kind of put us into those weird bubbles of information bias in the last 10 years.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
It is that kind of self-curation. And the real problem emerges when people don't realize that that's what's happening. Now people know, but older generations don't know. I was talking to my dad, and he's like, I was just flipping around on YouTube. Because he still equates it to like channel surfing, the clicker, right?
Flipping around.
And
like mass
and it's
media
like, well,
style.
you don't. Yeah, but also like flipping around, as you flip around, you're not digging yourself deeper and deeper into this hole of
Right.
more of the stuff that you've clicked on.
Yes.
Right. On a regular TV, like I can look at all these different channels and I'm very likely to come across channels that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
But this is carving out this deep hole into this like bubble of bias where you're just surrounded and people don't know. Like my dad doesn't even realize that different aspect makes it so significantly different than just flipping around. It's like you don't realize that every click you make, it's digging you further into this direction.
Yeah. I asked my kids, like, like, how much do you think your watch habits influence what you're going to watch next? I wonder how much they could intuit what's really happening. And then like the follow-on conclusions from that, when we're talking about echo chambers, when we're talking about, like informational bias, like, do you realize that your worldview is informed by the media that you take in? And do you realize that the media that you take in is informed by the memes that you're watching just casually, and who created those memes and why you're not even certain of, things like that. I would say like, the youth today and people that are a little bit younger than us are much more media literate than we were at their age. But at the same time, like we've been soaking in this stuff for a while. So we kind of like really have a good idea of what's going on. And similar to your dad, like his awareness level, I don't know what the awareness level of my children is because like they're not building it. Like you and I are building this stuff. So we kind of get it. They're just experiencing it as a consumer, And I think that's a lot of the case for the upcoming generation where they don't remember the non-algorithmic feeds,
Even us though, we
Sure.
don't remember day to day, right? Like we'll be waiting for something, pull out your phone, look at it without even thinking, and you're participating in that. What you're looking at, what you're clicking on, everything is shaping this thing. And I forget about it. Like if I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what's happening. I'm aware of it, but it's so easy to kind of just slip into these habitual behavioral patterns without constantly having this awareness in the front of your mind.
Totally. Which is a great segue into this next clip where Jack talks about the advent of the TikTok algorithm, which the 2020s, right? We're going by these decades. It's so fascinating, by the way.
I wish that it stopped there. But around the turn of the decade, a new company came onto the scene called TikTok. And TikTok had a much deeper impact in the ecosystem I think anyone foresaw at the time. It wasn't just short-form vertical first video. That wasn't it. That's a red herring, I think. It was much more fundamental than that. TikTok said, we want to make the most engaging feed possible. This whole idea of a list of your subscriptions, forget about that. In fact, forget about the whole concept of subscriptions. TikTok started from the ground up with something totally different called For You, where each of these posts are chosen for me by TikTok instead of me choosing what's in my feed. And this completely abandoned the concept of the follow. But it worked. TikTok hit 1 billion users by 2021, and traffic on the internet started flowing away from the legacy social companies and toward TikTok. So just like with Facebook and ranking, the other platforms had to compete. YouTube launched Shorts, Instagram launched Reels, and Twitter launched a For You feed as well. And within a couple of years, this whole system of organization for the internet, the creator-led community, started to fade into the past. I have really felt this personally as a creator in the last 4 years especially.
So the TikTok approach was like anti-subscription entirely. There was no follow at all even available. Actually I don't have TikTok. I don't really know what it's like. What is it? What's in your experience moving?
I don't have it either.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure on TikTok you can follow somebody, right, or have friends or whatever. I think the main difference was out of the gate. As soon as you get in, it's not, how a lot of these platforms are like, what are your interests?
Yeah.
What kind of music are you into?
Yeah.
And you kind of do a light curation of these kinds of interests to get recommended accounts, and then you find stuff. Out of the gate, they skip that. And they go, here's a bunch of stuff, and as you interact with it, we're going to refine it. You click on this thing, or you have an extended attention, eye contact with this thing, we're going to show you more of that. So just out of the gate, they're doing that.
You don't even have to click a like. It's just like, did you watch?
There's no onboarding.
Did you watch the whole
And I think
clip?
that ultimately is what I mean, in addition to handling that UX and that algorithmic finding what you like, in a obviously they killed it with that, but more than anything, they killed it with just onboarding. You're just in it and you see a For You feed, I guess. You don't have to like find things to follow.
Exactly.
So I think people don't give enough credit to just simply lowering the barrier to entry.
Yeah, Jack said that people credited it to short form video, and he goes, "That's a red herring. It was actually the For You feed, like that. What you're saying, low
that immediate
low friction, immediate
slot machine.
Yeah. But the problem that Jack outlines is that you no longer have a connection to who and what you're seeing. Like there's no election to follow somebody. There's no decision to become a fan. And I've seen that with,
but I haven't used TikTok.
Yeah.
So I'm talking out of school here.
Sure.
But I'm pretty sure they probably also have those features, right? If you see something you like, you can probably look at their profile, see all the videos they posted, and follow them in some fashion.
For sure. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they didn't neglect those. I think they just didn't put those up front, right? They just say, you don't have to do that. You can if you want, but right away we're giving you this dopamine drip of, stimuli.
That's right. That's right. The feed that you're going to get over time changes, in my experience. And so now I'm talking about YouTube Shorts because I do have YouTube. I see that it is a mix of what I follow and what I don't. But more than that, like I could get into a creator and like their shorts or their TikToks or whatever. And then like as time goes on, that creator could fade away from my feed because now I like race cars. Now I like horsies. Now I like, learning about cooking, learning about wrenches or whatever, it's just all this eclectic stuff. And
it seems to be more immediate. So for example, I can look at music production stuff for years and that's all I see. Great. At one time I look up how to make a perfect boiled egg and then my whole feed's that. And it's like, okay, calm down, YouTube.
This is the kind of stuff I really wanted to talk with you specifically about is like the what creators do that are not his advice to creators to kind of avoid the trappings of the algorithm.
But it is kind of like, get to bed early, eat healthy, make things you love, right? Be passionate. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, where's the meat on the bones? Where's the protein of what he's saying?
Okay.
Here? What's crazy to me is that it has been decades, that it is 2024. And we still have these, I equate environments, user experiences with a government.
Okay.
Now, most of these, so for example, MySpace was the explosion at the beginning for people. And I didn't see him mention MySpace at all, but that was the thing, right?
Yeah.
MySpace was the explosion at the beginning for our generation.
Yeah.
And the big thing was you can customize your own page. You can express yourself. You could even go in and edit the code, right? That's when I first learned how to write HTML and CSS. It was MySpace. And like there was artist centric and you were in this community. And then Facebook came around and stripped that away like a communist regime. Everyone's in gray. Everyone looks the same, right? And they've taken out this self-expression. The majority of people that people follow are people they've never met.
Yeah.
That's not the way it was back then with Facebook. It was people that you've met or people that maybe you met at a show or whatever, or at a concert, but it was still people you met. You weren't really following this cult of celebrity. You weren't following thousands of accounts of people that you've just never met. That's the state now.
Right.
There's not a feeling of community or togetherness at all.
No.
And allowing people to spend money on other things isn't going to increase that feeling of community or togetherness, right? Now, allowing artists to sustain themselves in other ways is great for artists, and it's great for Patreon's bottom line. But again, it's a business, and I do have some quips to trade with saying, like, here's the way the industry's going, where it's curated by the machine. We want people to be able to like curate their own environments of interests, which, how do you discover stuff within those interests? Well, now we're back at like algorithmic suggestions and we're just going in circles, right?
Yeah.
And his big solution was not just allowing people to subscribe, but also buy like a t-shirt. That's the big solution.
I don't.
And that's why I'm saying the majority of that buildup is substanceless. And then the release was like, oh, this is,
I think,
you know what I'm saying? That was the climax. That you're just
let me kind
letting
of
people buy
dissect
one
a little
off.
bit here. I think they,
Yeah.
I think your characterization of it, like just being a storefront, is a little bit different. But I think that there is like a higher wall of resistance when you're saying, give me your email in order to follow me, or give me your credit card in order to get my updates. And that's a higher wall. And so the idea is that you're going to get the people who get over the wall is going to be a better filter for the
Qualified customers. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
But if people are connected with the brand, there's a qualification there.
Yeah.
There is a barrier, there's the barrier of enter your email, the barrier of have a subscription. But then there's the barrier of, do you like this or not? Like, and that happens individually with like people on Patreon. It's not really happening with Patreon.
Right. Yeah. Patreon,
and I think
to become a place where a brand can express itself. Right. So
that self-expression is limited to, you can post a photo or a video, or you can post some text in a box.
Yeah.
That's the limit, right? You can't, and that's really also what differentiates. Like, there's people running successful businesses on Patreon, but there's something about, once they reach a certain level of success, they got to have their own website, they got to have their own domain. You've got to have these things where you express yourself, right?
Yeah.
Am I able to identify with the artists on Patreon, or engage with the artists on Patreon? Yes, but do people identify with the brand of Patreon or the platform itself?
Right.
No. It's just it's a means to an end.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
So
it's a
what
paywall
would
for
you like to see
user-generated
then?
content.
What do you think is the sweet spot here?
Well, like I said, more interest-based platforms where it's not a generalized platform where people can have like, here's my interest over here and my interest over here, where the platform itself represents a group of people.
Right.
But then you got Patreon, which, I mean, I guess you could say their interest group is creators.
Yeah.
But that is kind of the interest group of every platform, right? I mean, you need every one of these platforms needs people posting, or they don't exist.
I mean, I don't know, like yes and no, because like the demographic of like a TikTok or a YouTube short, the way that platform handles things is it encourages and incentivizes impactful impactful video, impactful experiences. And if you can't provide that in a consistent way, you fade from the feed, you fade from the awareness bubble of your audience. But what Patreon is trying to do is they're saying it's not about the thing you've done yesterday or today that's going to dictate if you survive tomorrow. We're trying to build long-term, kind of connections and revenues and communities for creators who are here for like the long term, whereas like a TikTok is like, this could go viral. It's like a traffic stop thing, or if it's like a meme or something like this, there's a lot of overlap and crossover. And so it can be tough to split hairs and like intentions and things like that. But I want to round this out by kind of like looking at this last clip. I think it's pretty relevant to where we're landing here. He has a few ideas of like, what can creators do to like, overcome the algorithm and whatever. And it's like, essentially like, make the things you love. And this is what you're talking about, like zeroing in on, you're calling it the brand of the platform, but it could be like on an individual creator's level, like, not creating for the platform, but creating for the love of creating to make the thing that you need, that's inside, that you need to take out. But then the last piece of advice is know what you want. And I think this is something that I struggle with a little bit. This is because we can be influenced to want so many different things by all these platforms, like looking at the analytics or trying to game the algorithm. It can be hard to know like what you want. But I think this is really good advice, or at least like inspiring, at least.
Know what you want. The hardest lesson I have learned as a creative person and as an operator and CEO over the last 10 years is to know and trust what I want, and to be true to that over time. That's easier said than done. Don't let somebody else tell you what you want, because then you'll end up with what they want instead of what you want. I think a good example of that is, as creators, we open up our dashboards and we see these metrics on what success is. This is a dashboard that someone else built for us, and it tells us what we want. And the weird thing is, after a couple of years, we start to believe that. Like, our minds get reprogrammed, and we believe, this is what I want. This is success. And we chase that. If you went back in time and you asked Ella Fitzgerald or David Bowie or Prince, what do you want? What's your goal as an artist? What matters to you? Do you think Bowie would have said, my goal as an artist is to maximize the amount of human hours spent consuming my work?
Yeah, he poses this question of like, do you think, an artist like David Bowie at that time in his era would have wanted to create art to get more watch time? And I think that's a good question. Like, what do you want? And let me ask you this: like, when I asked you to join me here on DevTips and kind of like do this with me, like, what are your aspirations for being on this channel, and like, what do you hope to like achieve here at being the co-host of the new DevTips?
I was actually just jumping at the excuse to hang out with you.
Yes, that's what you want, right? Like, that's.
Yeah, I'm actually just here to hang out with my friend. And I didn't know I was the co-host. I thought I was a guest at first. Now I just found out I was the co-host today.
You're a bro host, is what it is.
I'm the bro host. Yeah. No, ultimately, I just want to hang out with you. I enjoy having these conversations.
Yeah.
And it is nice to see like what kind of feedback that could get from the public who are interested in this kind of stuff. I guess I didn't really think about that. I was really just trying to hang out.
I think that's a good answer, man. I think that's a valid answer, because like that's kind of what I'm looking for when I spoke to you about it. I was like, hey, I think this would be a great opportunity to, like, now that I have this channel again, I need a consistent voice in my life that's like, that's yours, smart, encouraging, brilliant. And also I need like...
Oh, go on.
Yeah. I only do in threes, only compliments in threes. Excuse me. But yeah, like the chance to hang out is a great summary there. Also, like, to explore like a growth measurement. Like, one of the things I really liked about DevTips when I did it the first time is that, like, it was so interesting and easy to chart my own growth. Over the 3 or 4 years that I was the host of DevTips, I saw where I improved, and I saw how it kind of like really impacted my life in other avenues too. Professionally,
I like that.
Socially as well. Yeah. And I think I told you this, like, there's just something really, really powerful about putting a microphone in front of somebody you care about and listening to their words intentionally, So yeah, I think I align with you on that. Like, my goals, like know what you want in the question of Jack here. My answer would be as well, like, to have a good connection with somebody I really care about and respect, and then share that, with the world. And there's great opportunities we have to invite other people. We're going to have guests coming in the future, but also like this idea of like, hey, let's talk about a theme, let's talk about a topic, and also to build in public. There's some projects that I've been like trying to get off of my to-do list, but I've had no accountability, no like urgency. But if I'm sharing them with you and we're checking in on a semi-regular basis, I think that like I can achieve the things that I've been meaning to do for quite a while. So that's another kind of selfish reason I have. Accountability.
Yeah, I like that. I like the checking in,
Yeah.
the accountability, and kind of being able to show off.
Yeah, showing
Being
off.
able to floss a
Yeah.
little bit. Be like, look at what I've been working on. Like, that is a huge like motivation for me, because I'm a narcissistic performer,
Hell
so
yeah,
I want to
buddy.
show off. I want to show what I've been working on.
Yeah.
So that's a nice selfish thing for me as well. Yeah.
Speaking of you showing off, I was looking at Shy Crush. Let me pull it up. shycrush.com this week, and I saw that you had done a little bit of a revision. So let me
A little bit.
pull up the website. So it features the music. Oh, you did it even since I saw it yesterday. Here, I'll play. So Head in the Clouds is the song. I love this song. I've had it on loop for quite a while. But this animation is awesome too. And yeah, so if you go to shycrush.com, you can hear Max and like see what he's got going on in the music world. But that's a little bit of show off for you, a little bit of floss before we end it. This is fascinating. Let's keep talking about it in our next few episodes. Anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks for like being here, dude. This is a lot of fun. All right, man.
But, I love you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you too, bud. Take care.
All right, peace.